Everybody, welcome back to Play Like a Girl. I'm your host, Gianna Cambria, and I am thrilled to say that it's already the 23rd episode. I truly cannot believe that myself. But we have another great guest here with us this week. She is the head coach of Burrillville High School's basketball team, and I'm excited to say we have Amy Hauser with us today. Hi, Amy. How are you?
Hi, I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for asking. I'm so excited that you're here this week.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. So my first initial question that I wanted to kick things off with was, how did you initially get involved in basketball?
Oh, geez. I basically was born into the whole athletic spectrum of basketball, football, soccer, you name it. And I just kind of took a natural liking to basketball. It was the one that came the most natural to me to begin with. And then my mom was very into basketball as well. So it kind of was the trickle down effect a little bit with it.
That's funny that you say that because it's the same thing in my family. I was basically born into figure skating because my older brother did it. My older brother played hockey, but my sister and I figure skated. We were just born on the ice, and my dad used to coach us. So
yeah, I have an older brother, and my mom was his coach. So I'd be the little rugrat on the side, dribbling up and down during the boys' practice to keep myself busy, and just kind of took off from there.
Yeah, I definitely relate to that. So what was it like growing up basketball, and how did you get past some of the stereotyping that people might have mentioned to you?
So, as I said, my family in general is just I come from a line of coaches, and for most of my childhood, I was the only girl out of all my cousins and stuff like that. And my family loved to roast that. So it was always oh, you're a girl, you can't do it. So my big motivation has always been proving people wrong and showing my cousins I could hang, and trying to make me the coach. And I'm I'm not the coach, I'm playing. So I feel that was just something that, just because I was the only girl growing up for I said, the majority of my childhood, that was just something that was instilled in me, was I was going to prove everybody wrong. So
I agree with you too on that aspect. I always felt that something that really pushed me and that gave me a shove was just to prove everybody wrong in the sport that I played and to prove to myself that I could do it. So that's how I kept myself moving forward when I was playing.
Yeah, it was always out of a joke and the tough love kind of thing. But I really do give a lot of that, that's a lot of the credit I would have to give to why I was so motivated to become the best I could be in sports in general.
Yeah, no, I agree with I think that I agree with you, but it's the same story for me. I tell myself, I can do it. No, whatever anybody has to say to me, I don't care. I'll just push.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what I've truly learned from in the past. That's some of the memories that I look back to.
Right. And then when you do, of course, it's they're your biggest supporters. I knew you could do it, they were just trying to get you to get that kind of toughness in you.
Mm-hmm. So what would you say was one memory from the game that you would carry with you for the rest of your life? And if you remember the significance behind us, if you want to share that too.
Honestly, so probably it's not even a basketball one, believe it or not. It would be when I played all-star softball. We were just I'm going to call it what it is, because that's kind of how I am. We were a bunch of hicks from Burrillville compared to everybody else. We were just a small town group of girls playing in I believe it was in East Hampton, and we had no business making it to the championship and none of that. And we fought our way back from the losers bracket into the championship. And it's funny because the girls and I still talk about it now. We're all in our 30s, but we remember like the other coaches getting so mad at the other team that we were like beating, like you should never be losing to this team. But it was just that tough girl mentality that we all had. And we ended up losing in the championship. And we had the biggest pig pile in the outfield. And the other team was looking at us like, they know they lost, right? But to us, it didn't matter because we already we made a name for ourselves, like we proved everybody in that tournament wrong, that we deserved to be there and that we were more than capable of playing at that level. So that's definitely one that I think will always no matter what, if I bump into one of the girls on my team 10 years later, 20 years later, it's still something like a special bond we all have.
That's great. Well, I also played softball, and there's been many stories where we've been playing teams that are like, why are they beating you right now? Like, we should be winning. So I know how you feel in that scenario. But also just doing and being and doing a team sport for so long taught me that, if you win together, that's great, but you're also going to lose together, and you should always have your head up no matter which one it is. And it's like the main thing that I brought with me as well.
Yeah, and one of my favorites is win or learn, never lose.
Yeah.
If you lose, at least learn something from the loss. So that's definitely an important one for me.
Yeah, definitely. So looking back at your career now, what is something you wish that you could have done that you could have done to better yourself as an athlete?
Especially now, being a coach of kids, that thinking back to when I was in high school, all the times when the coaches would say you're gonna miss this, play every game like it's your last game, and all of those things, you take it for granted when obviously you're a teenager and you take everything for granted when you're a teenager, but just actually being able to motivate myself enough to, I don't want to say push myself, because I always push myself, but play every game like it was his last, really. And probably at that point it would have pushed me enough to do better in school, which in return would have pushed me enough to eventually play out of college. But school was never really my thing, unfortunately.
Okay. Well, so my mom always did tell me growing up, play every game like it was your last, or live in the moment. And I can say that I also did truly take that for granted, because here I am in college and missing every single second of the sports that I was a part of.
Yeah.
If there was any advice that I would give, it would definitely be to play every game like it was your last, because if you truly did that, you would just have the time of your life every second of the time that you're playing.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah.
So I understand that you come from a family of coaches, like you said before. So can you explain to us what that was like, and tell us a little bit about your cousin that you told me about that coached the NFL, because that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So my grandfather, my dad's father, coached high school football, was very well known for it in Rhode Island, and especially in Burrillville. My two uncles both coached basketball at college level. They'll kill me for not knowing. One was in Maine, I think I want to say, another Stonehill, and then another uncle was the head football coach at Wesleyan College for years. He's now at Tufts football. Then my cousin Steve, who is younger than me, he coached briefly in the NFL with under Mangini. I think it was at the Browns at that time. Then he was at Ohio State after that. Not Ohio State, that's a lie. Oklahoma State. And then he went to Iowa State, and that was where, and I believe he's in transition again, but he's been basically at every level of coaching. So yeah. Go ahead.
I said that's great. Do you would you see yourself looking up to him in a way as a coach?
Honestly, I do. He's probably, my cousin Steve is probably one of the most determined and like you tell me to run through a wall, I'm going to run through a wall if that means that's going to get me the position I need, or I need to carry everybody's equipment. Okay, I'm going to carry everybody's equipment. If that's eventually going to like put me into the position I want to be, then he'll do it. So yeah, I definitely like, honestly, like to me, like age isn't really like, has never really played a huge factor. Like even as a coach, like I tell my girls all the time, I'm like, girls, talk to me. Like I don't know everything. I'm not out there. Like communicate to me. I don't like that. Like, well, I'm your superior because I'm older. Like
Mhm.
that's never been really my thing. So like he's definitely somebody that I look up to, even though he's quite a few years younger than me. We won't get into ages.
So, well, it sounds like you have a lot of cousins. Do you like, are you Italian if you don't mind me asking?
So my mom's Italian, yes. Yes, I have a lot of cousins. I have, God, I probably have 36 cousins combined if I had to guess, like, and like extended cousins that like become cousins. And yeah,
Mhm.
we're both sides of my family are very close knit. So
Yeah. Well, that's great because I was gonna say, I'm also Italian. I mean, my name probably gives that away, but my dad is one of 8 kids, and they all played sports growing up. But since they all got married and had kids, like I have so many cousins just like you, and it's just crazy that we're similar in that aspect.
yeah, I know, it's crazy. And
So, oh, sorry. What did you have
no,
to?
I was gonna say, and both sides of my family actually are all like somewhere there's a coach at some level, and like I have a cousin who is like over, I think it was in Africa building basketball courts, and then I have a cousin that coaches at the high school, like the girls hockey team, cousin that coaches the girls softball team. So it runs deep in my family.
Well, so as I told you, my whole family kind of grew up on the ice. My brother, my sister, and I are all coaches now.
Hmm.
So I can relate to what you're saying. But my brother, if I ever met any of the kids that he's coached, they don't have one bad thing to say about him. Like they're like, oh, he treats us like. Have you ever seen the hockey movie Miracle?
I have not.
So it's about like this Olympic team, and
I know the story about the Olympic team, but I've never seen the movie.
there's one scene in the film where the coach just keeps blowing the whistle for them to do suicides back and forth until the players are puking. And
Hmm.
so much that they learn from that. But every time I talk to somebody that has been coached by my brother, they're like, he pushes me so hard to the point where it feels like I want to throw up. But what I'm learning from him is where like I wouldn't be able to learn that from anybody else, you know?
Yeah,
So
it's
I, yeah, so I kind of like look up to him as like my coaching standpoint.
yeah. I know it really is great to have like a little network when you're coaching, because you think you figured it out, and then a season like this year happens where it's like how hard do you push them, because they're already dealing with so many other things with COVID and like the mental health that comes along with it. And so it's great to have people to turn to when it
Mhm.
comes to like coaching.
I agree with that statement 100%. If I was back in high school right now playing my sports during COVID, I don't know what I would have done. And I don't know how I would have communicated with my coaches if I was like not mentally doing well or not physically doing well, and how like I can just take a step back, or if COVID was like seriously bothering me. I don't know how I would have communicated that with them. Like it's a whole new level of something to deal with.
It really is. And it's funny because I took last year off from coaching. So the girls that had me before, compared to like the freshmen, like the upperclassmen, are always like, guys, you don't understand. She's not being hard on us. Like, because they've seen like the different like levels of Coach Hauser
Yeah,
pre-COVID and post-COVID, because it's just different. Everything's different, for myself included. So it kind of just changes, like puts things in perspective, and kind of like changes the importance of like wins and losses versus like life lessons and things like that. So
it's definitely a learning process for both the player and the coach and any
hmm.
member on the team.
Yeah.
So, how do you feel about basketball now that you are a coach instead of a player?
I can honestly tell you that coaching is 10 times harder than playing.
Mhm.
It is so hard. Like the first year I coached, I'm like, I'm so excited, and I'm like, I'm going to be so good at this. Like, just had that mentality. Like, I was an athlete, and I was going to go in and just become the athlete version, but as a coach. And let me tell you, Lord, it was not like that at all. I was like trying to do it on the sidelines for him because I couldn't like verbally explain what I wanted them to do. So it was definitely like a huge transition and way more difficult. Coach Crowley, if you're watching, I give you a lot of credit after becoming a coach, having to deal with me as a player.
Well, it's definitely hard. You know, I feel the same way because I always, when I was playing my sport, I was like taking criticism from my coaches and taking what they would say into, like, I would just take it into consideration and do what the fixes that they wanted me to do. But sometimes it's hard as a coach because you can't put it into words what you want the kids to do. So you're just like frustrated, but you can't show them your frustration.
Right.
You need to like be the upper figure to them, you know?
Right. I know. And it's definitely, it's definitely an adjustment. Like this is my 7th year now, with last year off. So I coached 6 years, took a year off, and now I'm back this year. So this is my 7th year. So I'm only now just starting to get like comfortable in the coaching position versus like the athlete position. But it's definitely the most rewarding job I've ever had too, by far. So like when you see them finally like click, like I had it last game, one of my players, I've been preaching confidence, and she just was not, she was like just down on herself. And then all of a sudden she had that breakthrough moment in one of our games, and it was like, yes, like she's back, you know? So those are the things that make it all worth it to me.
So would you say things like that are your favorite part of coaching, or is there something else in particular that you love about it?
I think I would have to say probably like and I tell my girls this all the time, like I'm super, super competitive, but I honestly like it doesn't necessarily mean like we have like a winning record. Like to me, like competitiveness can be as simple as like, okay, girls, true story, we had 37 turnovers in one of our games. Like we need to bring this down. We have to cut this in half. And then like reaching that to me is a win, you know? So it's kind of just putting it into like a realistic kind of wins and losses versus like we have to win every game. So I think just teaching them like how to like set goals for themselves, and once they accomplish them, and then showing them that they have the confidence, they need to like find the confidence within themselves to like achieve things. Is definitely one of like the more rewarding things to see, like once they finally like blossom into the person that we know they are as coaches. But for them to finally like become that is definitely probably the most for me.
Yeah. So I, from a viewer's point of view, like as I was telling you before that I work the women's and the men's games at URL, I have seen like the women's team go from a losing streak to like a 5-6 game winning streak, which they're in right now since the first time in like literally the 60s. It's been a while.
That's awesome.
So as a viewer, like help like producing this game for them, broadcasting this game, I'm sitting back and I'm watching the girls run back and forth on the court, being up by like 35 points. And then they put their freshman subs in who haven't played all season. And they're like getting points left and right. They're shooting threes from left and right, making those. And you just see the seniors on the team jumping up from their chairs, like throwing like moppings in the air and just screaming. And they're so excited. And I feel like that's the best thing to witness from a viewer, because you can see how much like the players love the game, but also love each other and work as one big team, you know?
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
So with that being said, I just want to go to commercial break really quick. And then when we get back, I just have a few more questions I want to ask you.
Sounds good.
Guys, welcome back to episode 23 of Play Like a Girl. We're with the head coach of Roseville's women's basketball team, Amy Hauser. And before I ask her the next question, I just want to remind you guys that are watching, if you have a question for her, you can type it in the comments and we'll ask her for you. But what I'm interested in knowing is, obviously, playing a sport, being a coach, for the both of us, we know that there are certain qualities that make a good team captain. So I was wondering which qualities you would say those were, and if you see those in any of the players that you coach right now.
Yeah, definitely. I personally like having like more than one captain, just because I think there's different personalities that certain people just don't jive with or don't feel comfortable with or can't relate to. So I definitely take that into consideration when choosing like captains. We do a team vote for us, but we have the final say as coaches. But I definitely think they have to be approachable, number one. Number two is they have to respect the coaches and their teammates. And I'd rather see them respect their teammates more than anything, because if they don't have that, then you can pretty much count the season out. So definitely being approachable, being a leader on and off the court, which is huge for high school, especially because we know how it is, the peer pressure, the attitudes, the bullies, all that stuff. I don't want that on my team. I don't want my team being represented like that. I don't want my school being represented like that, any of that. So it starts from the top. And I think that choosing the correct captains, which I do have this year, I actually have 3 this year, and they were all great kids with very different personalities, but they're all kids that I think somebody on the team would feel comfortable going to with any type of issue that they didn't feel comfortable maybe starting with me at. They could start with them and then come to me if needed. So
no, those are definitely great qualities. I feel like there's certain things or certain situations that girls get into where they aren't comfortable with telling their coaches, and if they have somebody to go to that like is a captain, that's just something good and something great they can rely on.
Right. Yeah, that's what we tell them. They're basically like an extension of us. So, and if they feel the need to come to us, which we have to trust them to do if necessary, then the captains can come to us with the other issues. So it's good.
Well, that's really great, though. So before I ask you the next question, Vincent Machui, I don't know how to say his name, he said that they were lucky to have you as their coach, and hashtag Bronco Pride.
Thank you.
So my next question was, how does being an athlete make you a better person?
Oh my God. I can't, I almost wish it was mandatory because it is such a huge thing for kids, especially like the high school age, for them to be involved in. It teaches every single lesson you can imagine, like as an adult. I don't like from working with a team, like which transfers over obviously in jobs, like being held accountable, being on time for things, like everything, overcoming like obstacles, pushing yourself to be the best. Like to me, it's just so important. Like I would be devastated if if I ever have kids, if they don't want to play sports, because I just think it's so important for them to like have that sense of like team and that pride in something that you do and working towards a goal. Like it's so important, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree as well. I wish that everybody played a sport, because the things that I've learned, I wish that some of my friends like learned the same, you know?
Yeah, it's true. Even like I said, like that one game, like the softball game that I was telling you about, like that's something that like all of us will remember forever. Like it's so like dumb in the big scheme of life, but to us in like that moment, like that memory is just something that like we always will have with each other.
Definitely. I feel like life, obviously stuff happens. There's situations that you get yourself caught into. You don't know how to do it, and you don't know how to feel. But I feel like looking back at life when I'm older, I'm going to remember a lot of my memories and my teammates and how they made me feel and how I could have turned to them with anything and I knew they would have been by my side no matter what I did.
Absolutely. Yep.
Mhm.
I still call my high school coach to this day. I text him today. I'm like, Coach, I need advice on something. It's just
Well,
it's very unique, like the bonds that you build throughout sports.
yeah. So, obviously, like I told you before, we were both coaches. When I started coaching, I felt like I saw myself in some of the kids that I was teaching. So, can you say that you feel the same way with the girls that you coach?
Oh, yes. And it's like when people start having kids and they say, "Wait till you have a kid like yourself." I felt that as a coach because I had two kids in particular that, man, were they so much like me in high school. Like they had the drive, but they also had like a little bit of like the cockiness and the attitude, which is good when you're a kid, but when you're the coach trying to teach the kid, it kind of comes back to bite you. So I definitely have seen that in a couple of my players. But
So,
they're both players to this day that I still talk to and they reach out to me with like questions or concerns or if they have good news, bad news. So we
right,
definitely still have like that kind of relationship after too. So
that's good. Well, I feel the same. I feel like one of my coaches from skating, um, she just happens to be one of my sister's like really good friends, but I can literally turn to her for anything. On my 25th birthday, I called her and I was like, "Hey, will you take a shot with me on FaceTime?" And she answered, and she was like, "Hell yeah, I will!" Like best friends.
that's great.
So would you say that there's something that you have learned from the kids that you coach instead of you being the role model that's supposed to teach them?
Oh my God. It's so funny you say that. That was probably the biggest surprise to me as coaching is that I thought I was going to like come in and be like this big like life lesson teacher and things like that. And I have to say, I bet you they've taught me more than I've taught them just in like communication and being patient with them and just kind of like putting things back into perspective on what's important and just in general, like just life things in general. Like I one another like former player in particular, she shared something on Instagram and in my head I'm like, man, like I preached this all to my girls, but seeing her post it, now I'm like checking my own self and I'm like, wait, I'm not even doing what I'm asking these guys to do, you know? So it's funny because it comes like full circle a lot of times where lessons you taught them, they're like reteaching you and just like I said, like the patience and the and communicating and things like that are all stuff that I thought I had like in the bag as an adult. And then I'm like, nope.
Yeah. Communication is always hard though. Like no matter what age you are, where you are, it's always going to be something that's difficult. But it's like a practice that you bring with you throughout your whole life. You know.
And like I said to you before, like I'm like huge into like females being strong and like you don't have a place, you have places everywhere, like you wherever you want to be is where you belong. And I like especially right now with like the COVID because you can see it taking a toll on the kids, like I keep preaching like be confident, like be proud of who you are and like things like that. And then I'm sitting here like you text me before and asked me like, oh well, like tell me a little about yourself, and I was like, I don't talk about myself. And I like caught myself. I'm like, I sit here and tell these girls, like, be proud of who you are. And then, like, the second I get asked, like, to talk about myself, I'm like, I'm not talking about myself. So even just today, like, it happened, you know? So it's
No,
always catching up to you.
I definitely agree with that too as well. Though it's hard to like just being a woman surrounded by social media and what is going on in the world. It's just hard to stay positive, but you just have to find those things and you have to like you say, preach confidence. You keep telling your girls be confident, even though it's hard in yourself to be confident, you know? Even for me, after I do these podcasts, I always FaceTime my mom. I'm like, Mom, how was it? Like, well, and she's like, you did great. No, for real, tell me how I did. And she's like,
Right.
no, great.
I
But
know.
speaking of my mom, she just commented, coaching is like teaching. You make an impact on everything that you say and do, which is very true.
It is. It's so true.
Mhm. So how would you deal with situations where one of your players came to you with a personal problem instead of an athletic one? Like, for instance, I remember my mom telling me, I live in the Bronx. She works in a public school in the Bronx. So obviously there's kids that like don't come to school with food or like have trouble doing certain things at home. My mom told me that one time she would bring them breakfast and she would just sit down and talk with them. What would you do if one of your um, students came up to you and told you a personal problem and they didn't know what to do?
Um, so I have had this. I have had this situation in the past. I honestly, I trust my gut and I go with what I think is best and most protective of the child. Um, I always err on the side of caution with most things, meaning if I think it's something that needs to be told, I'll like to somebody besides me, then
Mhm.
I'm going to say it. But luckily for me, none were as like serious to that level. But our town is very unique. It's like one of my friends that's not from around here calls it Mayberry. It's very like old school, like community. Everybody supports everybody. It takes a village kind of thing. So um, I have a good group of people that are trustworthy that I could be like, hey, let's just I'm gonna throw it out. So and so needs a pair of basketball shoes, can't afford them.
Mhm.
They'll be like, okay, no questions asked, how much are they? Like that kind of thing, you know? So, and I don't even need to say a name. I'll just say one of the kids on my team can't afford shoes. And I'd have 20 people offering to buy a kid a pair of shoes. So I think, I think because of like what I grew up in, like my whole life, that's how it was around. It was always just been that way here that it kind of is the same as a coach when it comes to like kids being in need or things like that. So,
Yeah. I also agree on that aspect. I grew up in a small town. Everybody had each other's backs. The girls on my team, if I needed anything, if they needed anything, they were just very reliable. The parents were reliable. And that's also one of the great things about being on a team sport. It's not just having friends or having a team, it's having a family and a home away from home.
exactly. Yep.
So is there any advice that you can give to other coaches that are just starting up their coaching careers?
Don't be hard on yourself. It will get easier. Um, if you're in it for the right reasons, it will always be rewarding no matter what. Um, yeah, trust the ones that or I should say surround yourself with people you trust when you're asking for advice and things like that. Like I said, I happen to have a great network, some being family, some being former coaches, things like that. But ask a million questions, ask as many questions as you can. Don't ever think you know it all, because you never will. That's one of the biggest things I can say, like especially coming from people who have been coaching longer, but even people that are just starting out, they might have a better press break than you and that you didn't think would work, but you watch them run it and you know what, it works. Don't be afraid to say I'm wrong, and you know what, we're going to run this instead.
Yeah,
That's probably one of the biggest thing, is just learn as much as you can and just be positive. That's these kids need a positive figure in their life. So any way you can help them is the best you can do, I think, as a coach.
yeah, definitely. And when you said don't be afraid to know that you're wrong, I think that can be taught and preached throughout life, not even in sports or just to coaching, because so many people are scared to admit that they did something wrong, or they're scared to admit that they didn't do their best. But when you admit it is when you learn.
Yeah, absolutely. I said to my girls today, I'm like, I do a sandwich. I say like positive thing, something we need to work on, and then another positive thing. But today I was like, girls, like I mess up all the time. Like I'm not sitting here beating you guys up. I'm correcting you. I'm like, I should have taken us out of that press break the last game 4 scores before I did. So it's not me beating you guys up. It's me trying to help you, just because we all do it. We all, after the fact, you sit back and you look and you're like, oh my God, what was I thinking? Like, but I think when you take ownership for yourself and you show the kids like, hey, look, I messed up. Like I'm gonna own that. it kind of makes them feel like a little bit more at ease to be like, oh, you know what, I should have done this. It's easier to like fix when you're willing to admit that there was a problem. So
Well, in one of my classes that I'm taking right now for school, our professor has us write one rose and one thorn about somebody else's speech. So I think just reading what people are saying to me, the good and the bad, I'm like, okay, yeah, maybe I did do that wrong in my speech, but I'm going to learn from it and I'm going to try harder next time. I'm going to try and fix that mistake. It's just so useful to have somebody, whether it's a friend, a mentor, a stranger in your class, tell you what you're doing, good or bad, because when you don't listen to their criticism is when you don't learn for yourself.
right, exactly. And that's like you said, that's just in life in general, man. Like, and if you're not willing to learn and fix things, like you're stuck in the same spot, you know. If I always thought I was right, what a boring life that would be, because I'd never learn anything new.
Yeah. My mom just commented again saying, I agree with you. It's okay to ask questions. And it's okay to ask for help. This makes you grow as a coach and an athlete.
Yep, I like your mom. Is she the Italian? Is she the one that's Italian?
She's very Italian.
Yeah, see, I knew it.
Her name is Patrizia. Very Italian.
That's pretty Italian.
So why do you think the concept of women supporting women in sports is so important?
It's huge because I mean, it's huge for so many reasons, but we're already at a disadvantage. I mean, let's call it what it is. It's just how it has been and how it still is, but hopefully we're making strides and eventually going to be, I don't believe we are equals. I know we're equals. I know sometimes we're better, but in our society, like, perfect example, like how many jerseys do you see that say like Lady Cougars and then the guys team just says Cougars? You know, like small things like that need to be adjusted. But I think that women especially need to support other women, because there's plenty of people that want to knock them down. There's plenty of people that don't want them to share the spotlight with them. So if you add women into that, where women are like, oh God, she's being so dramatic, who cares that it says Lady Cougars? No, that doesn't help. You know, like we need all the women on board in order to like catapult female sports to where they should be. I mean, if you pay attention, like women's sports is up and coming. It's the fastest growing things right now. So either hop on or get past.
Definitely, it is growing like rapid fire with the first official that officiated, or the first ref that officiated the Super Bowl. And she had such great advice to say. I spoke about this a little bit in my last podcast, but she said she wasn't doing it for she wasn't doing it to show the world that she was a female official. She was doing it to show the world that she loved football. And she wanted to show other girls that if they love their sport, they can do anything that they put their head to. And I think just from that small thing, there's already been more women refs in NBA games, or there's been refs at the URI games, more women than men that I'm seeing now, which is great. And just like that one woman has been trending on Twitter, little girls have been posing in referee jerseys pretending to be her because they're just so inspired by that one single action. That's what we need to keep spreading across the world.
Yeah, that whole Super Bowl had so much. Like there was the first assistant female coach, the first I think it was the athletic trainer that was a female, the first pilot flyover was a female. Like it was like so many in one instance, and like we need to keep that momentum going, like where it's not even talked about. It's just like, yeah, it's a girl doing a job, like just like any other male doing a job, you know.
I agree, we have to keep it coming, and it's a shame that it took until 2021 for all of this to come out and be something that is so lively talked about now. It should have just happened years ago.
Right. But hey, we'll take it, right?
Take it, and we'll keep taking it.
Yep, absolutely.
So my last question for you to end the podcast tonight is, obviously you know the name of the podcast is Play Like a Girl. What do you think the significance behind the name is, playing like a girl, and why is it so important for other generations to understand?
I'm sorry, you were cutting out. So why is it?
So, sorry, why do you think it's important to play like a girl, and why is it important for the younger generations to understand that?
Because playing like a girl is playing like you. If you're a girl and you're playing hard, you're playing like a girl. It doesn't matter that a guy does it differently, or a guy may appear to be stronger than you. That's fine. Let them do it. But you're playing like a girl because you are a girl. So there's nothing wrong with that. And there's nothing saying that playing like a guy is better.
Yeah, I agree. There is nothing wrong with playing like a girl.
Yeah, like it's people say that like it's an insult, but I take it as a compliment. Like, yeah, I do.
Yeah. So when me and Ron were discussing the name of this podcast, I mentioned to him that Nike commercial where it was like they showed various ages of girls from the age of like 3 to 18, and they were like, "Show me what it means to run like a girl." And the toddlers were running as fast as they could, and the teenagers were running and playing with their hair. Or if they were like, show me what it means to throw like a girl. The toddlers were throwing their hardest, and the girls were just pretending that it was nothing, making like a fuss out of it. So what would you say like the importance of that video was, and why did Nike out of everything release it?
I can't believe I haven't seen this video. I'm gonna have to YouTube it after.
If you look it up after this, it's everywhere.
Oh my god. It's just this typical, like the stereotypical, like, oh, girls can't do it as good as boys kind of thing. Like it's insane. Like, I mean, before my basketball practices when I was in high school, like the boys would be in the gym and I'd be playing the boys one-on-one. Like it was like, all right, who's next? Like, I'm not saying I beat them all, but I played with them and it was whatever. It's not like I was picked last in pickup playing with guys. So I think that's just, if anybody that believes that way is a man that feels threatened. I'll say it, because there's no reason for anybody to try to knock somebody down based on their gender, period, point blank. Like if you aren't threatened, then let everybody have equal like chances. Let every team have the same amount of gym time. Let every team get the same sponsorships or whatever. Give them the same airtime. Give them the same pay. All that stuff. Like especially in sports, you know. But promote WNBA like you promote the NBA.
Yep.
You know, I mean, WNBA, man, just in like, I'm getting a little off topic, but just in like equal rights in general, like even like racial equality, WNBA has been about it since day one, and you never heard anything. Then all of a sudden you have LeBron James who comes in and starts talking, and it's like, LeBron James, he's so for it, he's this, that, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, where have y'all been? Because WNBA has been preaching this for years, you know, but it just gets overlooked because it's just not, in the society we live in right now, it's just not what gets the attention because it's females. So
yeah,
but we're getting there.
Yeah, hopefully we can start growing even faster, because we've made a long way so far.
Yes, exactly. And it keeps going, you know. And that's the thing, like and that's one of the things I try, like each generation of females brings us a little bit farther. Like, I mean, when I was a kid, like people ask what I want to do, I'd be like, I want to play in the NBA, because there was no WNBA. So like thinking about that, which wasn't that long ago when I was a kid, to now, like that's huge strides, man. Like that's crazy. So
yeah, look at how far we've come just from that short amount of time.
I know. Look, we have a podcast in Rhode Island right now for female sports. Like this is amazing. So thank you.
No, thank you so much for coming. I really enjoyed speaking with you.
I enjoyed it too. Thank you.
No problem. I'll see you soon.
Yes, keep it up.
Thank you. Bye. Okay, well, that was Amy. I loved speaking to her. She was so inspirational to me, and I just cannot wait to see how far she comes in her career. Hopefully she gets as far as her cousins have. But yeah, make sure that you guys stay tuned for next week's episode. We have another great guest as always. And as you know, this is the podcast called Play Like a Girl for the girls. I'll see you next week.